And we're recording.
Thank you. Okay, so it's 7:06, September 11th, 2025. Calling the meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Flores.
Here.
Gonzalez. Here. Hussein. Present. Jost. Here. Masajer.
Here.
Moldowski.
Here.
Pelletier. Here.
All right. Okay, so first, public comments agenda item only. It's also this.
Did you have something on the agenda?
Just wanted to observe today.
Okay.
So he doesn't hear me talking enough.
Okay, is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone would like to be removed? Was that a yes, Mark?
No.
Okay, you put your, it just happened to be timed there, okay. All right.
Funny. That's
I'll make a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda, which includes, meeting minutes from August 14, 2025, and the August 2025 financial reports.
I second.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll vote on the consent agenda. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Hussein is not here yet. Jost.
Yes.
Masajer.
Yes.
Moldowski.
Yes.
Pelletier, yes. Flores.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Next president's report, I don't have anything, this month. Committee reports, there were no committee meetings, right?
Right.
Is there a policy one
It
coming
will
up?
be scheduled.
Okay.
We had a somewhat major personal issue that we were dealing with, so that, between that and budget, it kind of
Okay.
sucked all the air out of the room, if you will, so.
No worries.
Same personnel issue, right? Not a
No,
new
it's a
one?
different one.
Oh, damn.
So it's handled, but yeah, so anyway, I'm planning on doing that, and yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. So staff reports, well, first, I just, yay for the per capita grant, that's always great news, so, and I know that's under communications too, but is there anything else you would like to highlight about that?
Just about the per capita grant, because Kim had a couple of questions, so I'll try to answer them as appropriate. So Kim did ask when we, how the per capita grant is determined and how this year's amount compared to last year's. So the per capita grant is actually a dollar amount per person in your community. So for this year, the per capita grant was $1.475 per person. So the last census, and they look at the official census.
Okay.
So the 2020 census in Morton Grove, there were 25,297 people. And so that came out to the, whatever the amount is for the,
37,000.
yes.
Yeah.
So it is slightly less by like $2, I think.
Oh,
It's
okay.
much,
That's
it's
great.
very, it's like,
Yeah.
it went down just slightly. I think it was 1.48 something last year or something like that. So it is just a tiny bit less, but it's almost exactly the same.
Great.
So, and that amount, prior to last year's change, it had, because it went up, I don't want to say significantly, because it was only probably a couple $1,000s, but every little bit helps. The per capita award was less, and so last year they bumped it up, and so I anticipate that it will probably stay at this level for the next few years. It's been pretty stable the past several years for this, but there have been times in Illinois history where we have been awarded the grant, but we haven't actually gotten the money because the
Oh.
state doesn't have any money. So this year, I mean, that has not happened for several years, and not only were we awarded, but the money is actually in our account. So, and that is on the financials. You'll see it's under the per capita grant is put directly into our Illinois funds account. So, and then we usually transfer it out, but I may not be doing that. I may talk to you about that. So, so yeah, does that answer that question, Kevin?
Yeah,
Okay.
great.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And does anyone, unless anyone has any questions about my report or any of the staff reports?
I just, one small question, but the teen hangout, obviously nobody showed up, but was that, how was that organized, or how was that publicized?
Our usual, I mean, social media, newsletter, email blast. Teen programming is very hard.
Yeah, no, I know,
mean,
yeah, we've talked about it
it's not
forever.
hard to do.
We keep waiting for you to come up with the solution.
So,
Mark.
yeah, when you
Oh,
do,
it's
you
up
can
to-
tell,
oh, I-
you can tell all the
now that I
libraries
know.
around. It can't, it's notoriously difficult, particularly once they get old enough to drive,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
there's
No,
so,
no,
and there's so
no.
many other demands on their time.
Yeah.
So what we find is that we have success if we do outreach, like if we go to the high schools, that kind of thing, have been more successful for us. And, you know, a lot of doing things like, you know, exam cramps, so staying open late for finals, that kind of thing, and getting pizza and
Yeah.
And
this year.
that was great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we got
that
a
sounds
therapy
like
dog
it.
and that kind of thing. So those kinds of things have been pretty successful for us. But, you know, we're always trying different things, and it's not just here. That's
Yeah.
kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
notorious problem throughout the library world. It's just like,
Yeah.
how do you keep those kids coming into your building when they've got so many other demands on their time, kind of thing, so.
Yeah. But I think it's also, you know, we also just, it's here when you need us kind of thing.
Right.
You know, a lot of times you end up, right, you know, in your early 20s, like, oh, let me put that prayer for maybe I'll go. You know, sometimes, you know, we'll continue to provide the, you know, the cram session, like that was really
Right.
a lot.
And I think the
yeah.
thing is that, you know, particularly as you think about, you know, programming for older teens and certainly like 20s and 30s, right? That's also a group that typically, unless they have children, oftentimes are not,
Engaged.
you know, they're not as engaged with that.
Right.
But we are seeing some of those changes, like, they do engage, I think, with our visual resources more, those age groups and stuff. But then, but again, and another reason that we're looking to create more spaces for people to be is that they wanna come in, they need to use a study room, they need to just, you know, get out of their house because they're working from home or whatever, that kind of thing. So creating those spaces where they can use the library, they may not be attending a program, they may not be checking anything out, but if they're walking through our building or walking through our doors, you know, what can we do to create those spaces that make them wanna stay
Mhm.
there? So.
It's nice when they do the lit loot box, because my son can't necessarily come in, he won't come in here, but he loves the lit loot box.
Right, yeah.
And there's like 2 books in there,
Mhm.
one light checkout, it's really nice
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, and it is hard, and like I said, we're always looking at things that may be appealing to them and
Yeah.
stuff, so.
That's awesome.
And my daughter and her friends came to the teen hangout in July because they have recently now qualified to be teens. But now that school has started,
Mhm.
and her homework is taken
Exactly,
over in
yeah,
sports,
yeah,
it's like she'd wanna go, but she wouldn't be able to.
Exactly,
Just
yeah.
not the time.
Right, again,
That worked, it was still summer break,
so many
so.
commitments and so many other demands on their time that it can be difficult.
But they said they had a great time with the game. They said it was so much fun.
But again, that, you know, I mean, we see teens use the study rooms constantly when school starts and stuff, so to create those, more of those kinds of spaces, are, at least right now, is a way that we feel that we can reach them somewhat.
Yeah.
In the way that, yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions for, Pam, before we move on? So then we'll go into, unfinished business. We'll hear what Jen, any bathroom renovation updates. I know we talked a little bit on that.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I did, on Monday, I met with the guy who will be overseeing the asbestos abatement. And then tomorrow morning, I have a call with Zach Swanson, our project manager from SMC, to discuss the timeline. So I'll have a much better idea after that, and I'll email you guys, because I'll be, you know, letting staff know, because we're gonna have to close off some areas, because that whole east end is gonna be blocked off at different times. So I'm trying to kind of figure out the logistics of all of that. I think, as I mentioned too, there's asbestos in the mastic and the carpet tiles in the east end. There is no asbestos in the Baxter Auditorium, so that's nice, we don't have to worry about that. But asbestos abatement adds thousands of dollars to any kind of construction project, which is something that we need to keep in mind as we do some different things. So the first time we did this, I was told, all the asbestos in the building is gone after the main floor renovation. As we found out, all the asbestos in the library was not gone. And it's not all gone even after the lower level renovation. But just for the removal of the asbestos for the mastic is gonna be $31,000, $33,000, something, one of those. But you have to do it. You can't touch that space without doing that.
Yeah.
We have looked at pulling up those carpet tiles on the east end of the building, and then the minute we saw that, we stopped and we had a smoke piece tested. And this time they did more testing, you know, just because they're ripping everything up. So we were aware that there was some asbestos in the mastic, which is the paste that they, or the glue that they use to stick the carpet tiles on. So it won't, there would still be, I think there's still asbestos in these stairs because they're that, and then it may be the last, that might be the last once we do this, but I hate to say that it's all gone because I have seen too many times that that's not the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have a better idea tomorrow about exact timing of things. I do know that we're still slated to begin the first week of October. That first 5 days or so is supposed to be demo. So that will be demoing the bathrooms. And then asbestos abatement will be the second week of October, and then that's about all I know as far as the timing.
Do we need to approve any days to close?
I don't know when those
We don't-
would be.
we don't know yet,
I
okay,
don't know.
okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So with the asbestos abatement, so the trades are gonna start at 6 in the morning. At least for the abatement, they start at 6 and they end at 2. So we are hoping they can do a lot of the grinding because of the type of asbestos that they have to grind all that mastic off, and so that's noisy. And it's noisy not only up here, but it's noisy on the lower level because it vibrates, right? So hopefully the ceiling won't fall in. I don't think it should. But I with this building,
It's an
one
old
never
building.
knows. It's an old building. But yeah, so we've talked to the project manager for the asbestos abatement, and you know, he's gonna try to do as much of that kind of thing prior to us being open, just because of the noise. So as with all these things, I try not to close a library if I don't have to, and I don't think we'll have to at any point right now, but I don't know that for sure. So,
Okay.
you know, should something come up that I need to, I would, and if the timing works out, I would bring it up at this or reach out to Emily for, you know, kind of emergency approval if something happens, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
And like I said, I'll send an email tomorrow when I have a better idea of the timing of things, so. Because that's when the staff's heads will explode, when I go, well, we have to do this, and I'm hoping we can work around all these things, but, you know, again, it's really hard to plan these kinds of projects when you're still trying to stay open and still provide services and programs for people and stuff, especially around the Baxter room and the bathrooms and
Yeah.
stuff, so. But we'll make it work, and it'll be awesome when it's done.
Yeah. Okay, which brings us to new business. So in your packet, you had 3 quotes, or 3, I don't say like official quotes, but 3, you know, proposals, I guess you wanna call it, for consulting for the director search process. So I thought this was a good place to start, so I did ask Pam to, you know, reach out to a few. And as you see, we have one from Peters and Todd, one from Stax, and one from, is it Bradbury Miller?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, you can, you know, certainly open up to any questions. I did, I asked a few friends of mine who are, on library boards who, one actually used to be on this library board and has since moved to Michigan, and she's a good friend of mine. It's just their perspective about, you know, using a consultant for the library search process, and it was highly recommended to do so. There's a lot of details, there's a lot of steps to make sure that things are done right. Something that, at least is very important to me, is within this process, the hiring process, is to have staff interviews with the prospective candidates, and I want the staff to feel they can be as honest and transparent as possible. And so, you know, not to sway anyone right away, but this is, you know, something that I think is a good thing to consider. So, so please, you know, we can discuss, ask questions, and, yeah.
So having been a formal executive search consultant, one of the first questions I had for the Stacks one that wasn't referenced, that was referenced in the other ones, was a guarantee.
Yeah.
So that's one of the questions I had. I don't know if we decide to learn more, that would be a question that
Yeah.
we could.
And we did discover,
Yes,
we did discover Stacks is
Yes,
on the
they do.
newer side.
Okay.
They are.
And even their website almost looks like under, you know what I mean,
Okay.
like it looks like
Yeah.
it's still in the,
Right.
you know, I personally think Dieters and Todd was laid out,
I agree.
with the
It was
most,
very
with the
helpful.
most detail. I thought they were the most reasonable, and again, talking to a couple friends of mine, I guess it's not unusual to have someone who is a library director also consult. Like they have this expertise, so they also consult. Because I guess that's a somewhat, I don't know, becoming a commonplace thing. But I totally agree. I thought there was some definitely missing information on some of them. Yeah, thoughts, please, yes.
I appreciated Dieters and Todd, how they laid it out. But actually, before going into that, I thought Pam said we might have some internal candidates. And are we legally required to look outside the library?
No,
Or-
we're not
but is
legally
it-
required. I would highly recommend it.
Okay, okay.
Not that I don't think, at least I know of a couple people that have expressed interest to me
Yeah.
about taking on a director role either here or somewhere else
Yeah.
at some point. I think that both of those people would hold their own against
Yeah.
external candidates,
Yeah.
but I would also advise the board that I think it's good to see what's out there. Because
Okay.
there's a lot of talent in the Northern Illinois community, library community.
Sure.
And you're gonna end up with something amazing, because there's so many amazing librarians.
Great,
Just,
okay.
I'm not, but I would recommend that we open it up to the outside.
Okay. Because it also seems to me one of the advantages, if we did wind up going with an internal candidate, that leaves room for someone else to move up, and that seems like we
Yeah, we
lose people because they want opportunities that aren't here, so.
yeah, I mean, and
yeah,
that,
but, yeah.
and that's, it's one of the, it's kind of an industry-wide, particularly in public libraries, just because of the nature of the way that we're organized.
Yeah.
There isn't, it's not like the corporate ladder kind of thing where you can just
Sure.
move up, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So, even for, I mean, and yes, that does give some people the opportunity to move up either from, internal candidates into it, like say,
Right.
a manager position or whatever.
Yeah.
But even for those kinds of things, we would open that up to the public as well.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
Okay, and because there's a lot of talent in the Northern Illinois area, it seems like we might not spend a lot of money on travel, like having to.
I would say, I would be very surprised if the board had to come up with money to pay travel fees for someone.
Okay.
Quite frankly, if they couldn't find someone to be director of this building in this
Within the
area,
hour here, yeah.
I would be, they would not be doing their jobs, first of all.
Yeah.
But I would be very surprised.
Okay, so that feels to me like another vote in favor of Dieters and Todd, because that proposal left us to deal with that. I do have a question about their timeline, where they're talking about advertising the job right before Christmas.
I would recommend that.
Yeah, no, so I'm sure it's sort of a boilerplate of,
Yeah.
they put in a date and everything fills
And
in,
that's,
but
and that's
yeah,
part
it's
of
like-
why I think it's a good idea to discuss it now, because
Yeah.
something that we may wanna consider is if, we can use this as our template, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, to your point, like starting right before Christmas, maybe that's not the ideal time. But then another part of that is do we want to consider having Pam and the new person maybe kind of overlap for maybe 3-4 weeks or something like that? Is that something that's important to us? Is that something, and if so, do we want to kind of move this, up a little bit, just so that way we have a little bit of wiggle time, like, towards the end. And Pam has been very gracious with just the fact that, her retirement date can be, I said it without wincing or anything. That it can be, fluid if needed, but her thought was to get the new director in to kind of get their, feet kind of solid before like summer reading when we get really busy and everything. So, you know, we can still kind of use that as our end date and everything. But we can certainly, like, say we go to with Leaders and Todd, we can say like, yeah, let's work together, but let's talk about the timeline, like let's maybe move this up 3
Right.
weeks or a month or
Yeah.
whatever, you know, whatever we kind of.
Do we know if that's feasible for them?
I believe so. I actually know Alex
Okay.
Hunt. He's director of Prospect High School Library. So I see him a lot at meetings and stuff like that. So I did actually, after I announced, I saw him at a meeting, and I had reached out to Dieters and Todd just to get this information for the board. This was a few weeks ago, and I did ask him, I said, you know, does that timeline fit? I said, I'm looking at the end of March, you know, how much time do you normally need?
Yeah.
I can't talk right now. And at that point, just in conversation with him, he was saying that they could start like in November if they
Okay.
wanted to. So that would then presumably end this process a month earlier, if you
Right.
started a month earlier. And then if that was something that the board felt strongly about, having me here at the same time as a new director, that would work out. The board may say, no, we want the new director not to be, maybe we don't like the way you did X, Y, Z, Pam, so we don't want them to, you know, get into your bad habits or those kind of things, right? I mean, that happens. It's like,
Well,
when I've got it, like when I came here the first time, there was co-directors and they were still here because they went back to their regular positions afterwards. But then there wasn't a director, and when I went to St. Charles, there was no overlap. So, and then coming back, there was no overlap.
and you're right, and there certainly doesn't have to be overlap, but I
No.
think the benefit to that is that, and look, and we're gonna encourage and want the new director to make their own mark.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And to do things the way that they think it makes sense. But the benefit of that is just to learn how it's been done, what is going well, what can I tweak, what can I learn, and so I don't, you know, I don't think that's a bad thing.
The other
so.
benefit, and I don't know, maybe Jeff, you can speak to this a little bit, is that, you know, we were talking about budget and some other things, and he's like, how do you know all these different things to do, right? And I'm like,
Yeah, right.
well, we have all kinds of lists, we have great director listservs, we have a great director networking team in the northern suburbs up here. But there are a lot of little things, and so I think not so much about my service philosophy or those kinds of things, but just like, you know, what button do I have to push
Yes,
today
yes,
kind of thing, you know,
right.
what report
Yes.
does the state need when, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And there's a lot of that that's just institutional, right? I mean, I've been a director now for 10, 12 years, I've been a librarian for 35 years, so there's just a lot of things that I just know that
Right.
it would be, I think, helpful no matter what, particularly if it's a new director. You know, if it's someone that's coming from somewhere else, that's a different thing. But if it's someone that's not had that role in any capacity, I think it can be overwhelming because there's just a lot of little things.
Of course.
That would be, to
Yeah.
me, that would be the advantage
Yeah.
to having some of that
To have
overlap.
yeah.
But again, that doesn't have to be the case because there's a lot of support in the area for a new director.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of the 11 HVAC systems
Right.
and, you know, just like the quirks of.
Right.
I think we're all
Sure,
gonna
yes.
remember that forever now.
I know.
If
it's
you've ever
crazy.
seen an aerial shot of the library, you'll never forget. Because they're all these,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, did anyone who didn't chime in, or anyone wanna? You don't have to though.
So I was just gonna say, one of the things, just kind of given the conversation regarding the timeline, that I think kind of made, I'm gonna get it wrong, Dieters and Todd stand
Mhm.
out. They come with a very strong network.
Yeah.
And I think that if we're gonna try and expedite or just be efficient, let's say, they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Like they come, they know the area, they're familiar. So I think that when thinking about just the cost, what they provide, all of that, going with an executive search firm that maybe has done some library searches, but that's not necessarily their bread and butter, it's gonna take a little bit more time and energy. So I think that really stood out to me when I was reviewing
Yeah.
their information.
And if anyone is interested, I mean, you know, I played around with everyone's website too, but they only do stuff in libraries. So
Yeah.
they do library executive director searches, they do retreat kind of, you know, that kind of thing. So this is their bread and butter, this is their expertise, so, yeah, so, well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna make a motion and hopefully everyone's feeling it, but, I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Dieters and Todd to conduct the executive director search.
I'll second it.
Me. Oh, wait, sorry.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead,
Still
go ahead.
discuss. The one thing that stood out with Dieters and Todd, and I don't know if the other people gave a number, but they said 2 finalists, and I feel like, I don't know, you have experience in this, can we get 3? Can we ask them about
I think
3,
it
or what's
depends on
the
the,
ideal number?
yeah, I think it depends on the size of the pool. I would say you definitely start with a larger pool and then kind of start to narrow. I think if you, depending on the size of the pool, when you get to the semi-finalist stage, we'll know.
Yeah.
So if there are
Okay.
6 semifinalists, like usually we would try to get 6 to 8 semifinalists, and those interviews are very long. They took several days. But usually you'll just know who are your rising stars and, you know, who you'll want to kind of get to that final stage. We usually would recommend to clients 2 to 3. However, many times for the searches that I did, people were having to travel, so that was just also a budgetary thing, like you don't have to pay for these
Yeah.
people to travel to campus or wherever. I think we'll just kind of see how the pool shakes out, but maybe we just flag that for them ahead of time and say, you know, we might be interested in maybe 3 finalists if we get to that point with a.
Well, I just realized, we are meeting with 4 to 6 as a board,
Right, for this
according to this, so yeah, this is, yeah, okay.
And they'll probably, again, if they're doing their job very well, help us be able to narrow
Okay.
and really guide us through that.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so the motion is open, we just have to, and seconded, we just have to vote.
Yep, you ready for that?
Yep.
Okay. Hussein,
Yes.
Joyce,
Yes.
Mason,
Yes.
Moldavsky,
Yes.
Pelletier, yes, Flores,
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Awesome.
I will let them know tomorrow, Monday. Tomorrow's my husband's birthday, so I may or may not be here, but then I have to go help babysit tonight, so.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then
But
so-
yeah, I'll let you guys know, and then also, just for my information in contacting Alex and Jim, you would prefer to start this process prior, like a month
Let's
earlier
do 1
than
month
December
early.
1, if they can?
Can we?
Okay.
So if we can, let's just move it up to November
Like,
1.
okay.
And if we need to do November 15th or something
Right,
like
can
that,
we
you
do
know,
that?
yeah, can we, yeah.
Is October too soon?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
it's-
even November,
it's
we're
a
getting.
quarter,
Yeah, we, like, it's,
I will say, October is too soon.
Okay, okay.
I think it is. I, for like staffing reasons and stuff like that, and trying to, I mean, we're starting the renovation during that, everything kind of starting then. And October may not work. I did talk to Alex briefly about, you know, it being over the holidays, but I feel like if you're moving it up a month, I feel like it'll be okay. I can ask him. I'm thinking, October is right around the corner, so I don't know if staff and
Oh,
or
that's
am I gonna be ready, but I can ask them.
But
I
is
guess
it,
I'm curious
initially-
regarding, like, just, I'm sorry, in terms of just even getting their insight into the current market and, networking strategies, so maybe even just beginning
So
conversations with
I
them.
will, and it's fine, I will tell you, there's, very few library jobs out there right now.
Okay.
So I do not anticipate that there will be, I anticipate there will be a
Those
lot
will
of
be
applicants for this
competitive.
position.
and assuming they do most of the work on the front end.
That was
Like you're not gonna,
question
yeah,
to the-
This
so
is-
October, they can start in
And-
October, you don't have to.
And this is
Yeah,
part of why,
exactly.
but we're hiring them so they can do the
Yes.
bulk.
Yeah, they may
Yeah.
have things that they start, but I mean, in terms of like staff interviews and those kinds of things, I feel like.
And it sounds like they would wanna meet with the board, so is that, would they come to a regular meeting, or would that be a special meeting?
We
or-
may have some, we'll have
Yeah,
to see.
special,
Yeah, we
okay,
may have some
okay.
special meetings, folks, so we will.
Let me,
And we'll try and be as respectful of everyone's time, of
let
course,
me
but-
contact them and
Yeah.
ask all these questions, and then I can
Yep.
let you guys know via email or, you know.
I know it might be an unpopular opinion, but personally, I'd rather have a special opinion than have, or
A special meeting.
meeting, if that can get the ball rolling sooner.
Yeah.
Than having them wait till our meeting is usually at this time, so
Right,
we'll
right.
meet you in 3
Yeah.
weeks. I don't
Right,
wanna-
yeah.
Or maybe even split the difference with having them start October 15th instead of October 1st.
Or I mean, like, or let's say hypothetically, like, we shoot for November 1, and then they're like, but let's meet 2 weeks before with you
Yep.
guys to just like put our heads together, or something like that, you know, or whatever, so.
You know, my concern is obviously the candidates are gonna be motivated, especially if there are few library positions available, but as you get to the holidays, it just starts getting harder to get
Yeah.
in touch with people at Thanksgiving, and then, people
Yeah.
start checking out, even to get all of us together too, so I would definitely rather start sooner than later.
Yeah, I guess one question is, they gave us this timeline, even if we start early, is it okay if we have an extra month in there, just because we get slowed down over the holidays? I can see getting everyone together for a meeting between Thanksgiving and Christmas, is if people have holiday concerts and school events. could be
I don't
challenging.
believe there's any reason that you couldn't do that.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
I think the
know.
only concern would be how quickly do you wanna get the process,
Sure.
completed,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of that, the only time I would caution against that is if you're extending the time between when the applications are due and when you're interviewing, right? You don't wanna spread that out. I think if you need to spread out the time, or you can't get together over the holidays, like some of those staff things, right, that kind of thing, but I wouldn't drag out the process between the posting the position and then interviews and that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Okay, so at least rushing the research part and,
Or taking longer on the research part and then,
Okay, right,
keeping
okay.
more timely for
Yeah.
the interview process, actually,
Yeah.
would be. But I will reach out to them and, discuss with them kind of, your thoughts, the concerns about timing, concerns about the holidays. Ask some, they'll be able to give me more information
Yeah.
once we sign the contract and stuff and say, okay, we're definitely going with you guys. My board is anxious to, kind of get the ball rolling here. What do we need to do and how can we expedite this process?
I have one more quick clarification question. So here's this review job description. Is that we're presenting to them what currently exists and then they're going to give us their recommendations?
They'll
and
review
feedback?
it and
Okay.
they'll review it and, I would imagine they would make any suggested changes to that.
Yeah.
To the job description somewhat, but not really because they don't know what the job,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I mean, we all generally have an idea what the director does. My job description was actually redone last
that long
year,
ago.
so
Yeah.
not
Oh,
that
okay.
long ago. We just redid it because we redid all of them. So, and the board looked at it and we looked at a bunch of other job descriptions and stuff. I think what they'll look at is like the job description and then how they're gonna pull all that stuff out and to have it be like an attractive
Yeah.
posting, job posting.
Okay.
yeah, it also looks like they're allowing almost a month, pretty much a month,
Yeah.
to screen, and maybe, I don't know if that's logistically on their end, they need all that time, or are they gonna get enough, quickly enough that?
So the issue with the timing then it does matter that they are both working, one's a director and one's an assistant
Oh,
director
okay.
currently. So some of this is probably built in timelines based on that they both have daytime jobs.
Yeah.
So there probably is some built-in wiggle room for them because they have their regular
Yeah.
jobs too.
I guess another question is, I'd like to know if and how they're using AI in their screening, because I think a lot of qualified people can get screened out because they're not fitting into a filter.
I would, without having spoken to them about this issue specifically, I would venture, I am 99% sure that they're not using AI, would be my guess, but I will ask that question
Okay.
for sure.
Good question.
Regarding the question about like the amount of time to screen candidates, that was my biggest pain point. Clients would say like, we want this in 4 weeks, and I'm like, no, like,
Yeah.
however, we wrote the job descriptions, like 8 to 10 page job descriptions, and did all the research, spoke to the staff, all that, gathered that information. And really, 6 weeks was really tight to build
Oh, okay.
a really diverse and deep applicant pool. Again, it depends on the role and all of that. But yeah, typically it was about an 8-week pool
Oh,
of
so
lead
this is
time.
pretty quick then.
Yeah. yeah, I saw that, I was like, ooh.
Do you think it's too quick?
So that's why I'm intrigued, because this is the only kind of search that they
Yeah,
do,
especially
and
this
they're immersed in it. So I'm just like, they must have the network to feel that confident that they can do it in 4 weeks and have full-time jobs and all of the things. So it didn't frighten me, it intrigued me about that for sure. So yeah, definitely. I think, just expressing that we're open to maybe starting a little bit earlier in conversations, getting to know them, however, whatever that may look like, and then we can learn from them just what they might recommend regarding that networking window.
Yeah. Thank you all. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so, this is where,
We haven't voted.
we haven't voted?
No, we
Yes,
voted.
Oh, you did,
Yeah.
okay,
Sorry, sorry.
Yes.
It passed.
Yes, sorry. I was busy taking notes, I'm sorry.
Okay, so 2026, budget presentations is the first reading, so, especially because we have a couple of newer trustees, we'll go through things with a little bit more
Mark,
detail
do
as
you
well
want
too.
a paper?
Would you like a paper copy?
Okay.
Yeah, with the numbers, do the paper copy. And I'll let you take it away, Kim.
Okay, I do wanna, Kim had asked a couple other questions that I did wanna address, but thank you, they don't really fit in, and I'm sorry, Kim, that I didn't get that. She also asked about Leighton's report that he attended naloxone training, that's Narcan. So she was asking how will or might this be, how it will or might be used at the library, who can administer it, blah, blah, blah. Not blah, 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 but you know what I mean. So if you haven't heard, and you may not have because I am the library director, the governor recently signed a law on August 1st that requires all public libraries in the state to have a supply of opioid antagonists, I'm just gonna say Narcan, in an accessible location. And so what the law requires, this goes into effect January 1, and it requires that to the best of their ability, a library has someone on staff at all times the library is open who has been trained in administering Narcan. So we actually have our supply of Narcan. Leighton stopped on the way into work today and picked some up. We got it for free from the Cook County Department of Public Health. I think that's what it's called. And so we've got that. We're actually making arrangements to have someone from the county come out at our staff ed service, which is November 7th, to do training. However, administering Narcan is basically a nasal spray. So they actually will allow you to say you're trained by just virtual training, but I know staff will feel better having a person, even though they'll stand up there for 10 minutes, but I'm sure everyone will ask a lot of questions, so that'll be fine. So that is our goal, is that to have everyone go through some level of this training, either the virtual or if they're going to be at our staff day. Most people attend the staff days, but there's people out in school or they've got another job or whatever, so it's not everyone. Basically, it's not a requirement by law. So far that it's not been too onerous. There are quite a few unfunded mandates that get handed down from Springfield sometimes. So this one is less onerous than some, but that's how we'll use that. So we'll have a better idea once we go through the training. And we've been fortunate; we have not had any instances of overdoses or anything like that. I think that doesn't mean that there are not people in the community that suffer from this, or that we won't see that in the future, right? It's the nature of currently where we're at, unfortunately. The positives with this are, it's hard to screw this up. Like if you don't need Narcan and you get it, nothing's gonna happen. So I think, as opposed to, and it's a little bit less intrusive or less stressful than say like using the AED, for example. Everyone gets freaked out. I mean, quite frankly, I'm like, I'm not gonna do the AED, I'm calling 911 sort of thing. But we're also very lucky that we're right by the fire department and right by the police department, so we do get response very quickly. But that is, like I said, there is a new law and we are required now to have all hours of the libraries open to do our best to have someone who's been trained in administering it. So that was the other thing. And then Kim also had a question about, Karina had talked to people from Waste Not Composting. And so we did talk to them a lot about either having something in the library or sponsoring something, and it's not really feasible for the cost that would be and stuff. So we're keeping that in mind, but for right now that didn't really fit too well. But we did want to meet with them you know, as a sustainability thing and
Sure.
that kind of thing. But they pretty much said it would be a little difficult even for our type of location and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, sorry, I don't mean to go.
No, you're fine.
So, okay, budget.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jeff, did you get a copy? Do you want a copy?
Sure, yeah.
I know, I think everyone but Kim and Ileana have gone through this with you before. So in your packets were the budget spreadsheet, which shows 2024 this year, and then my projected 2026 budget, which includes revenues and expenditures. And then I also gave you several pages of notes, as I do every year, which I hope everyone finds helpful.
Yes.
Those are very helpful.
And so I will try not to just read from them and skim over the parts that are relatively easy, because I don't want to keep everyone here really late. So to start, when I'm preparing the budget, I usually look at where we're at now, how are we, you know, how are there areas that we've overspent or underspending? Do I have to make any adjustments, you know, kind of right off the bat? The department managers all have to give me their budgets by usually July, August, depending on, you know, what's going on. And so I rely on them and their expertise and their individual departments to tell me what they need. And so they give me those, and I slot all those numbers in, and then I start playing with everything. So I knew from the very beginning that I was not going to be able to keep the levy flat this year, because they had been warning us for several months that health insurance was going to be going up. They thought 10 to 12%, and then it was 12 to 14%, and as you saw from the notes, it was an 18% increase, and that is after an 8.03% increase from 24 to 25, and an 8.06 increase from 23 to 24. So it's not unique. Everyone throughout the country has these same issues. Welcome to healthcare in America, but that's all I'm going to say about that. So for that reason, and knowing that we want to continue on our plans for, you know, reconfiguration, reorganization, remodeling where necessary, addressing building issues, that kind of thing, as well as trying to give staff some small raise. I knew I wasn't going to be able to keep it flat. So I'm showing you several different levy scenarios. I'm starting at 3.5% increase, and that is my recommended increase to the levy. Certainly if the board wants to approve a larger amount, that's fine. I'm happy to add more money into the budget lines. That's not a problem. We can always spend the money. As always, I try to be really mindful you know, I know that the village is probably going to be raising, I can't imagine that they're going to be able to keep their levy flat either. And I always try to be mindful that, you know, people don't want to pay more taxes. I totally get that. And so we also don't want to trigger a truth and taxation hearing, so I'm always trying to keep that under the 5% you know, increase. So those are the numbers that I ended up with in terms of revenue. Certainly having things, so most of our income, as you can see, comes from property taxes. So probably 98% of our income comes from property taxes. So you can see my different levy requests. On the notes, you will see that, you know, when you talk about percentages, and I was actually talking to a couple other directors about our budgets the other day, and we all agreed, it's like, they're not even talking about percentage increases anymore because it sounds big, but then when you look at how many actual dollars it is, it's ridiculously low, you know. So I'm saying I would like to see us have a 3.5 increase in our levy. That's a difference of $170,000. You know, that's pretty much all healthcare right there, right? So when you look at the actual dollars, it's not that big of an increase. Though it is still an increase, I understand that, and I try to be very mindful of people's financial situations, and we are entering a period of uncertainty. Prices are going up, certainly, inflation is coming, I mean, there's a lot of unknowns right now, so it's, yeah, that's where we're at. So talking about the specific revenue lines, so property tax, that's the main one. The replacement tax receipts are the personal property replacement tax receipts. This is an old, this was started, I think, in the 70s is when it actually started, and the state of Illinois actually changed the way that they taxed, I think it was businesses. And then when they did that, they allowed this personal property replacement tax receipt to make up for some of that, and it's based on, I'll have to find it for you, but it's not based on anything in the same way like your property taxes are. So I'm trying to remember what it's based on, but I will find that for you. And the thing is that makes it really difficult, though, is that you have no idea how much money that is going to be until you actually get the check. So the village doesn't even know how much money this is going to be because it's based on all these different configurations, and then the state gives them a certain amount of money that then they pass on. So we got really lucky a couple years ago. We got a huge PPRT tax, or amount of money. I think we got like $140,000, which was a nice windfall at the time for whatever building project we were doing that year. But last year it was about $50,000. I anticipate this year will be about $50,000 as well. So that's where that comes from. It could come in higher, it could come in lower as well. And I won't know that until we actually get the check. And it usually comes at the beginning of the year. License plate sticker revenue, that's new as of last year, but that's based on the revenue that we've brought in so far with license plate sticker revenue. We average that out. Fines, we get very few fines. We don't have fines. The only thing we have fines for now, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, is for interlibrary loan material. So anything that people check out from us is not fined if it's overdue. So that fines was never a huge part of our income, and it's such a, and most libraries are going to fine free. So we do get some income still, but not a lot. Lost materials payments, that's for materials that have been lost, obviously, pretty self-explanatory. Photocopies, printing, miscellaneous income was really low. We bumped it up this year because we hadn't yet created the lines for passport fees, and so we were putting those monies in there. And so you'll see for next year it's back down to the 1,000. So I try to account for everything that's coming in, but that's, there's always like, I'm trying to think what that could be that's not a donation or something else. So keep that there. Grants, so we get 2 grants. We get the per capita grant that I spoke about earlier. That grant is an annual grant. I will start talking about that actually probably next month, because the per capita grant, when I prepare it, for those of you that have not done it, it's an annual grant. The state requires you to do certain things. You have to review all the standards. There's Illinois Public Library standards. Those were just rewritten completely. So we're still waiting for guidance from the state of Illinois, how they want us to handle that, because they want you to review certain things, and you've got to tell, they've got different sections in the grant application that you review and say, how is your library meeting the standard, or is it meeting the standard, that kind of thing. So there's this whole narrative thing that I have to complete. But because the standards have changed so much, like I said, we're still waiting for guidance on how much that's going to be incorporated into the per capita grant application for next year. It's always due January 15th. They've been bumping the due date a couple weeks. Last year it was due like the 30th. I keep changing it, but it's usually due in January. And we review the standards. We say, how our library is meeting those standards or exceeding them or not meeting them, and what we're doing to meet them. So we'll start talking about that so I can prepare the per capita grant. And then basically I say, this is what our library is doing. Here's what we're going to be doing. And then when you do the per capita grant application, they ask you how you're going to expend those funds when you get them. There's only certain things you can spend per capita grant money on. So they ask you to do that, and then you also have to do a report that shows how you spent it and that kind of thing. So there's a per capita grant that's about $38,000, whatever it was this year. And then the age options grant, which I do talk about in my budget notes as well. Age options is a federal grant. It's the only federal money we get directly. And as I said in my notes, under the expenditures of Age Options money, it is for programming for seniors only. I mean, it's the only thing you can use those grant monies for. So, which is why it has a separate expenditure line as well as an income line or revenue line. And we fully anticipated that that would be gone this year because of the pullback of the billions of dollars in federal grants. But they have assured us that they have monies through next year. So we anticipate that we will get, the Age Options grant is $3,500. So that will be, so those are the only two grants that we know of right now that we get. So that doesn't mean that there may not be grant opportunities throughout the year, but interest income is interest income from any savings we have right now. Our Illinois funds accounts earn interest, our operating account earns some interest, I think, and the special reserves earn some interest. Book sale receipts, that's the money we get from the perpetual book sale and when we do the book sale at the summer reading cook-off, that money's going into there as well. Vending income is from the vending machine. And then passport fees and passport photos, those are two new budget lines for next year. As I said, for this year, we were putting all of those monies, we started out the year putting those monies into miscellaneous income, but now we're pulling it all out. So, and the numbers, I anticipate that the income probably will be higher than what I've got listed here, but I always like to be very conservative with my revenues and be very aggressive with my expenses. So I figure that way for sure I'm covered, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not planning on lots of money coming in that all of a sudden doesn't come in and then I'm scrambling, to cover for my expenditures. So that's passport fees and then passport photos. And we've broken those out because passport fees is the fees we collect for new passports. And then, but we do provide passport photos for if you have to renew, that kind of thing. So those are two separate lines. And then donations is any monetary donations that we may receive throughout the year. And then I include special reserves, which is not our general operating account, but it's a special reserve. Special reserve account can only be used for capital improvements by law. So I include those monies here because we can use those towards any of our building improvement projects that we do. And so they help offset those costs. So that's why I showed that there. Any questions about the revenues? So, now we get into expenses, and the expenses are, the budget is broken up, kind of like, we've got personnel, then we've got like collections and services, and then the building sort of thing, and then, miscellaneous charges. So, as with most organizations, certainly in libraries, our biggest expenditure is staff. Not only salaries, but all of the benefits and everything else that go along with that. So we have two statuses of staff. Status, I think is what it's called, exempt and non-exempt. Exempt means you're exempt from all of the wage laws, pretty much. Like, we don't get overtime, those kinds of things. So there's only, the only people that are exempt in the library are the managers and me.
Yeah.
So Layton's not exempt, he's not exempt. Everyone else is not exempt, means they're just paid hourly, and then they have all the wage protections. So, so that's the difference in the two lines. What I have here, what I'm showing in terms of the increase is, as I mentioned, a 3% pool of funds for increases. Last year, as you know, and thank you very much for approving the budget that allowed me to do this, we did a big push to get everyone to at least the mid-range of their pay grades or their pay ranges, and with the thinking that it would allow us to be a little less aggressive going forward, and then also to once again incorporate some component of merit when awarding the increases.
Yeah. So the midpoint range, so that we had a salary comparison study done for all of our staff to see kind of where, where we are, where other libraries kind of are, where we should be and everything. And for most staff, we were under. So that was a priority last year that we for, in the budget that we approved to get everybody as close to that midpoint range, as possible, so, yeah.
So, so again, I would like to go with the 3% pool of funds for staff increases, giving kind of an across-the-board increase of 1, maybe 1.5%, and then that would leave 1.5% to 2% potential merit for staff. So, that's, again, the exact percentage is still to be determined, but, the managers, when I've talked to them about increases and stuff, they've all said that they like this idea of having some, it's not a ton, but it's a little bit. I mean, those are the numbers we're working with, right? I mean, it's unfortunate, when you're looking at a 3% increase on somebody who makes $19 an hour, it's not a ton of money, or 2%, right, if you're in there, but it's something. I mean, it's better than not getting any increase at all. So, but it gives the managers, some slight, I don't want to say it can be, right, I mean, there's a lot of talk about, are you not motivating some of your best workers because they're like, why would I work hard if everyone else is getting the same increase as me, kind of thing, right? So this is a way for us to award at least somewhat our really high performers, as opposed to those that are, doing their job and doing them well, but, we certainly have some staff that really go above and beyond in their roles, and it would be nice to be able to recognize them. So, as I say, under wages, increasing wages changes FICA, obviously, because it's a percentage of your total salaries. And then IMRF, which is the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, which is the retirement fund that any person who works more than 20 hours on average, so it's 1,000 hours a year, it has to get IMRF. So, and I'll talk more about those in a bit. I did put money into unemployment this year, or for next year. As I mentioned previously, we did have a personnel issue. We did have to let someone go. So this person will be filing for unemployment. I'm probably not going to appeal it. So there will be some unemployment costs, but so I did include those. So right now, the library does not pay unemployment insurance because we utilize it so infrequently. It would cost us more money. So the way that we handle unemployment here is that if someone is let go for whatever reason and they file for unemployment, the state pays them, and then the state bills us for what they pay them. So we pay the state directly for that. So, and that's been fine. We don't have a tendency to let a lot of people go, so it's not been too much of an issue. And paying unemployment insurance would be much more expensive over the years. So that's okay, retirement. So as you can see from my very long explanation in retirement, right now, anyone who works, as I said, 1,000 hours a year, or 1,000 hours or more a year, is eligible, and in fact has to participate in the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. They cannot opt out of that. So we participate in that plan because we're a village library, and the village does as well, and IMRF is great. So it's my husband was actually at some meeting the other day, and he's talking to me about IMRF, which is the first time he's ever talked to me about IMRF in my entire married life with this man.
Did he ask you do you know what it is?
He didn't ask, he does know that I know what it is. But he was at some county meeting or whatever, and IMRF is, the pension is, I was saying it was about 95% funded, but he's texted me the other day, he says, they're saying IMRF is 99% funded.
Oh, wow.
Even better.
Yeah.
But it is the best funded pension plan in the state. There's also laws that the state can't touch that money. So we're all very happy that those of us who participate in IMRF. So it's very well funded. So the library participates in that. However, we also have to pay into the municipal the Municipal Employee Retirement Fund, the MRF plan, as I outlined in my notes. So prior to 2005, the Village of Morton Grove and the library, because we're together, because we're a village library, so we don't levy our own tax, the village levies for us. They participated in this, they had a separate 401k type thing set up. And so when they made that switch, they asked people, do you want to stay in the MRF plan or do you want to switch to IMRF? And so those people that didn't switch to IMRF, they stayed in the MRF plans. We have, since then, have had to pay into 2 retirement funds. The last person we had that was paying into the MRF plan, that worked here was Polo, who has since left. So we don't have anyone any longer that's paying into the plan, but there are still people that are getting funds from it. So as long as those people remain alive, or they have chosen survivor benefits or anything like that, we will have to continue to fund that. Every year, so Sickich is our accountant and they do our audit, but Lauterbach and Amon, which is another they're an actuarial and accounting firm, they actually handle the MRF plan, and so every year we have to give them different census data about employees and that kind of thing, and then they give us this big long report that tells us a recommended contribution, and it's usually about $200,000 to $210,000 every year. So we have not yet gotten that. So if you've looked at like the income statement from the financials, you'll see that our retirement budget line is really low right now. We've only spent like 25 to 30% of it, but that's because we haven't made the SMRF payment yet. So, so yeah, when that comes, we can sign a big check that's $208,000. So, yeah, Carlotta used to go, "This is the biggest check I've ever signed."
Yeah.
So, so the two plans are, we still have to pay into them. It's and I will tell you that the MRF plan is such a pain in the butt to when people have retired of using this plan, it's really difficult. It's really onerous. It's not. There's nothing online that you can see. You have to send your stuff to this little office in downstate Illinois and to try to talk to anyone there. And it's like, people come in and like Polo had questions about this when he was getting ready to leave and just stuff like that. And they're like, "Is there anyone I can call?" I'm like, "Nope." There's no one you can call. Is there a website? Nope. And it's like you as the employee can't just call. And CNA is where all the money is through. And so you can't. It's like I have to call or Leighton would have to call or whatever. It's really, it's been, I always have to, I kind of forget about it every time it's done because it's been so, so traumatic. It's fine. But IMRF is much easier. So the MRF payment, we have to wait for the recommended contribution. So when we get that, we pay that. But IMRF actually, so to figure that rate, I ballpark with the MRF based on earlier years, what I think we're going to have to pay. IMRF, we have a really good idea because the employer rate for IMRF changes. The employee rate is always 4.5%. So me as an employee, any of my IMRF eligible employees, 4.5% of our salaries goes to IMRF. And then the library's IMRF rate is refigured every year, so it doesn't stay the same every year. So as I can see from my notes, this year it's 5.79. Next year it'll go up just slightly to 5.84%. So, and that's based on who's retired, how much is getting put in, what is the return on investment, all of those kinds of things. So. All of that being said, because of some changing in staffing levels and we're able to we did not see any increase in our overall retirement budget line. So you can see it's been about $295,000 for the past few years. So that's good. Health insurance is where, I had a slight heart attack when I attended the WIN meeting, and I told Leighton, I said, if you hear gasping from my office, just check and see that I'm still alive.
Grab the AED.
Exactly. Or bring me some drugs and maybe I'll need something. Yeah. As I said, healthcare costs have gone up 18%. Our health insurance group, we're in a group with about 15 other libraries, something like that. It's called the Wellness Insurance Network, WIN, and they have another firm that administers all of that and looks for the best deals and that kind of thing. So they do, and so our plan isn't going to change significantly from this year to next, which is great because we have really nice insurance. We have pretty good insurance, and but the cost has gone up a lot. And last year I had made the change that you can see from my notes that for a long time, particularly if you had the lower cost plan, you didn't have to pay anything, and there was a flat fee that we just determined. And but last year I made the decision to have everyone pay 10% of the health insurance costs, whatever that is, which I think is still very, very generous. However, the library does not pay anything for any family or any spousal coverage. So, for example, my husband is on my plan with me. The library pays my portion, but I have to pay out of pocket for his portion, so. The downside to him selling his business and retiring. As I said, we currently have 25 employees that are eligible for health insurance coverage. You have to work at least 30 hours. 30 hours is considered full-time as far as the ACA is concerned. And so we have 25 employees. When I'm figuring out the health insurance costs, I anticipate that every single eligible employee will get the highest level of health insurance. That way I know I've got enough money no matter what. As I said though, not everyone participates. We do have a few employees that waive it because they get coverage from their spouse. And then some employees choose Plan B, which costs the library a little bit less. So while I budget for $340,000, I believe was the amount, I anticipate that our health insurance costs will more likely be around $300,000. But I can't plan on that because if I do have all 25 employees pick Plan A, then I have to make sure I have enough money to cover that.
Pam, I had a question about the HSA, or just a comment. We have a high deductible, in my family, we have a high deductible plan with an HSA, and it can be onerous, but it also, the HSA comes with some nice, it's a nice savings vehicle too, so I don't know, I mean, I don't know if you've interviewed staff about this, or if it costs anything extra to offer it, or?
It does, well, it costs, it could cost us more.
Oh, if you choose more.
Right,
Okay.
it could cost us more if the library, so I will tell you that when they present this, the company that Wynn has hired to oversee all of this, when they talk about the significant cost savings to staff, there is an assumption that the library is offsetting some of those costs.
Oh, okay.
So, so there's that, which is still, could be cheaper than, you know, offsetting the cost if you're choosing Plan A or Plan B of a regular insurance plan. But so the big cost savings that staff would see would still have some component of library, a library. We put money towards it. Again, it may still end up being cheaper for us. But then we would also have to pay to get the HSA set up, and someone has to administer that. So for example, we offer people a flex spend account, and we pay, like, what is it, 200?
240
Yeah, so I mean, there's costs associated with us paying someone to administer the HSA plan as well, so.
240 per pay period, so 480 per month.
Yeah, so it's not, so there is cost to that, that's just to administer it, so, and that's not even counting if we put any money towards offsetting, you know, allowing staff to, like, basically the library would be putting money into the HSA accounts for these people, so not only would we be doing that, but then the cost of actually administering the plan would have to come into that as well. And the idea that, you know, there's an expectation with the HSA that people have to do a lot more shopping around for their healthcare, and I personally find that really anathema, quite frankly. I mean, it's, you know, I've talked to a couple staff, I haven't polled everyone that participates in this. I will say that in casual conversations, I have not had anyone that has professed a desire to do that. Administering the HSA would be the tough part of that, and I think asking sick people to shop for their medical care is not ideal, but yeah. So there definitely is an increase. I do think that it's very hard to say what's going to happen in the next several years. So that's not to say that the library isn't at some point going to have to do something like this. You know, I mean, if costs continue to go up in this manner, we will have to look at either requiring more staff, you know, that'll cost the staff more, or that we may have to look at some of those less optimal plans for people, which is.
But that's not next year.
No, not for 2026.
Not for 2026, but
Yeah,
like.
but
yeah,
subsequent years, like I said, but
Not gonna be your problem.
it won't be my problem, but I also, you know,
But
it's, but I recognize, I mean, you know, I mean, it's gonna be everyone's problem, trying to figure out how we're all gonna get healthy care, right? But,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy, but, it is a lot, and, I will say that I don't know how many more years the library can continue to cover in the way that we have in the past, but I feel pretty comfortable about next year. I don't know about subsequent years. So. FSA, EDC fees, I started to talk about those. As I say, there's a flex spend account, and we only have a couple people that participate in that, and we still have to pay the same, fees to them. So that's not a great return on our investment, but we do have a couple of people that still utilize that. And then long-term disability insurance, it's all part of IMRF, so that's just all included with that. Any questions about that personnel expenses? So next we get into kind of collections and services. So I think a lot of this is pretty self-explanatory. Books is a lot, we made some changes with this, but I feel like I've explained them pretty well in my notes, so I'll just skim through them really quickly, so if you have any questions, stop me. As I have said, some of these numbers are different because we're pulling out monies that we're putting towards digital materials, and we created a new budget line for digital materials. You know, it's really funny because it was like, that's the way we used to do it years and years ago, and then the state library wanted us to report in a different way, so then we made all these changes, and now they want us to report this way, and the Illinois Public Library annual report, we have to report different things. So we made these changes based on, we feel like it will help us complete some of those required reports because we're tracking this more closely, because as it is, like Melissa and Courtney would have to do all this figuring about how much money did I spend on overdrive stuff as opposed to physical materials and stuff, because we had gone to like the book budget, as I said, included things like overdrive and that sort of thing in the past, because we were thinking we had gone from the format type to a book is a book, no matter how you're reading it. It's a digital book or it's a print book, right? But now we're going back to pulling things out by format. So that's the change. And these are all numbers that were requested by the managers. So you know, I try, as I said, when I'm preparing the budget, I look at the managers' requests and I put all their requests in and I see how much money that will cost if I give them everything that they've asked for. But we're able to do that, and these are all the amounts that the managers have asked for. So the book budget is, so you can actually see that we're not spending a whole lot, at least not the way we used to, on actual physical items any longer. And actually, if you look at like the monthly report and the stats and stuff, that the thing that is, if any of our circ stats go up, it's usually because the digital checkouts have gone up. And so, because our checkout of physical materials is going down a little bit each year. And then the checkouts of digital stuff and streaming content continues to go up. And people want it and they use it all the time. The problem with that is that digital material for libraries is exorbitantly expensive. So like if you're on Audible, for example, and you want to download a book on tape, whatever they call it now, I'm old, so I call it that. It's, you know, $12, $15, $9.95, whatever. Right. For us to get a digital content of that same book, like say through Overdrive, through Libby, it's like $85.
I think I would love to see some patron education around that. I know when we interviewed candidates and that one person said, oh, you know, I check it out as a digital book, and if I like it, I come in and get the physical one. I was like, wow, if we have a lot of people doing that, that's thousands of dollars a year.
Well,
I don't think people realize
it's
it.
not even that people are coming in to check out the physical book then. It's that, I mean, like for me, that's all I check out is pretty much digital material, because I spend a long time in my car every day.
Yeah.
So I do, I mean, but yeah, it's for libraries, and you know, we're trying to do more of that. We haven't done anything, but in general, we're trying to do more of that in the library world, because people don't know. And they think, well, how come you're not just buying a bunch of copies? Because I can go on Audible, I can go to Amazon, and I can get this. And I'm like, well, great, it costs us 10 times more.
And that's typical. I mean, there are digital materials that are like $150. And the other thing that's happening is that publishers don't want to play nice with libraries. And so they're really limiting. So for example, a lot of digital material comes now with a license for a certain amount of time. So say 2 years, and then you have to repurchase it for the same amount.
Yeah.
Or you can do what they call cost per circ. And so you're paying every time that gets checked out. And that can range anywhere from $1 to $3 or whatever the cost is. So there's a lot of management of this. I mean, as some of you know, I am the chair of the Electronic Content Consortium / Digital Library of Illinois Consortium, the Overdrive one that you're using, if you use it here. There's about 135 libraries in that. So we talk about this a lot, and costs and that kind of thing. And so just in general, there's been a little bit more of this kind of thing because states are trying to either sue the publishers or create some kind of agreements that limit publishers' abilities to basically overcharge libraries for the same content that they're putting out there for individual consumers. So, publishers' thinking is that they're doing this to protect their authors. There's a lot of studies that have been done about that, people that check things out from the library, they're more apt to buy materials and different things, and you discover more mid-list authors. It's libraries are good for publishers, they just don't realize it, or they don't want to put it. And it's unfortunate because we're one of the best ways to introduce mid-list authors for sure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not everything can be a James Patterson book or a
Right.
Nora Roberts kind of thing. So there's a lot of authors that appreciate that they get exposure through libraries and stuff. So anyway, these are the numbers that were requested. We're seeing most of those changes happen out of the adult book and AV collections because all of our digital material, even if it's children's, we don't get a ton of digital stuff for kids, but we do have some, has come out of those budget lines, so just the way that it's worked, so. And the way that Overdrive is set up and stuff, it's just easier to do it that way. Another new thing that we're doing this year is, right now, prior to this year and currently, things like pre-processing of materials and shipping of materials was coming out of the actual, either as I said in my notes, either out of the supply budget line or the book budget line. So we changed that. So now any shipping or processing costs come out of this new line, because what was happening is, particularly this year, we really started to see it have an impact on the budget for YS in particular. The costs were becoming so much that they had like $1,000 less, $1,500 less to spend on materials because they were paying for the shipping costs out of that as well. So we pulled monies out of supply budget and then added some money so that we could now have those processing and shipping costs come directly out of a separate line so that there's no diminution of the purchasing power of the actual materials lines. So that's new. My staff was very excited by that. Digital materials we talked about. The rest of the stuff I think is pretty self-explanatory. Does anyone have any questions about the collections before I go on? Library of Things. That's our Library of Things. That's the amount that was requested by Melissa and her staff. Microforms, the digitization. That is the cost that we put in for digitize a local newspaper. So we do that every year. Jeff actually does it. So that's the amount that we have for that. Programs. Those were the amounts that were requested by Courtney and Melissa, our two managers of the Adult and Teen Services Department and YS Department. Those numbers have stayed the same for the past few years or whatever. We do a lot of programming, so the staff could spend as much money as we put in that budget line, basically. So It's great. I remember when I came here the first time and I was just blown away by how much programming we did. And we do so much programming, like a lot more than a lot of other libraries that are our size in particular. So, you know, I mean, most of our programs are super well attended and people really appreciate them. And we bumped up the adult services line a little bit a few years back because people wanted to see more musical performances and stuff. So those are always really well attended, so.
The only thing in there, is age options counted twice, cause it's at 5250 and, up above.
So the up
Oh, wait,
above
this
is the revenue
we're
line.
spending, right, yeah, okay, just realized.
So
Yeah,
as I
yeah.
said, yeah, and as Kim points out, we have grant expenditures there.
Yeah.
The only, I don't track the per capita grant in the same way, because the last few years, the per capita grant is going towards building
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So, but we showed this separate because
Yeah.
it's an easy way for Melissa, who's the head of our Adult and Teen Services Department, because this grant can only be spent for seniors on specific types of program.
Right.
Yeah, and age options require us to do a report as well, so it's an easy way to track that. So as you can see, a couple years ago, we actually, the first year we got age options money, we actually got $10,000. And then the next year, we got $7,500. This year, we got $3,500, and they're saying that we'll get another $3,500, so fingers crossed that that's the case, as you know, the federal government seems to be trying to claw all that money back, so. My kid is losing his job because,
Oh, no.
well, he's not quite sure yet, it's a disaster, but he probably will, because he has a public health grant funded position, so yeah, it's awesome. It's all bad.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Nobody needs help.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's so, and he's like, and they're like, well, you'll find a job. And he's like, yeah, me and the 10,000 other public
Right?
health
Yeah.
professionals that have all been
Yeah.
laid off, so yeah. And that's what he said, he goes, you know, I'm competing against professors and stuff because I just, yeah, so it's a disaster. Anyway, but they have assured us that we should get this money, so because of the way that, because it's such a prescribed use of the funds, we separate that out. Photocopier acquisitions kind of reflects what the actual price is. I did build in a 3% increase, which I think just comes normally with our contract. Moving on to automation. As I said in my notes, what this is we pay OSG, they manage all of our services, all of the licensing for everything. We do regular computer replacement. We're on a really good cycle with them now. We don't have any outstanding projects. Everything is really running well. Like when we meet with Brian Jones, who is our account manager from OSG, he's like, I don't really have anything to talk about except the computer replacement and make sure it's all, everything's up to date. Leighton has been a huge help with helping out with some of that stuff as well. So this I did bump up just slightly, just to account for anticipated increases in the replacement costs of computers and that kind of thing. So in 2026, I anticipate we'll probably replace 12 computers is what, in addition to all of the licensing and those kinds of things, I think we're on like 12 computers, something like that. So, any questions about automation? That also is the area where I try to accommodate any technology-related requests by the department managers, like, I know, for example, if, you know, Courtney wanted to get 3 iPads for something that they were doing down in youth services, or Melissa wanted to do that, or, you know, they want to get a play table or something like that. So I try to, those types of purchases are also included in here. Databases are exactly what they sound like. We have kind of 3 groups of them. We have databases for adults, for YS, and then we have staff support databases. So these numbers reflect the amounts requested by the managers. And again, there is, I didn't indicate that for Courtney. So this is, we were able, so last year, what was it last year? The state contracted with EBSCO, and so there's a number of free databases. So what we did, rather than reducing that budget line by a lot, we actually then were able to go out and get things like Consumer Reports and New York Times and some other things that our patrons have really enjoyed. So, and those, like, for example, the Consumer Reports database is something like $10,000 a year. It's insane. New York Times is not cheap, that sort of thing. So, we decided to keep it relatively the same and get some other databases, since we didn't have to put money towards some of those databases that the state is now paying for, so. Staff support databases, as I said, those are the databases that staff use, or the software that staff use to do their jobs. You know, Baker and Taylor, Baker Taylor is our main jobber for certainly most of our adult materials. MyLibro is the MyLibro app. Library Help, as I said, chat reference tool. We have Desk Corrector. So there's a number of things that we use to do our jobs, to either track things or send out marketing things or purchase materials or catalog materials, all of those kinds of things. So, and I bumped that up slightly because I think I had under budgeted for that this year, so I did bump that up a little bit to more accurately reflect the cost of those. Web maintenance and improvements, this is the cost that this is what we send to Library Market, who hosts our website, and this is what they charge us annually to continue to host that. This is the amount requested by Karina, the marketing manager, because she's in charge of that. And then CCS is our catalog consortium, and it also includes OCLC, which is some cataloging, some back-end cataloging stuff. It's the CCS line has gone down significantly from a couple years ago due to increased membership in CCS. We've had a number of libraries join in the past few years, so that has spread the cost out then. I had a CCS meeting on yesterday, and we actually voted for a new, what they call an overlay on the public access. So the part that the patrons see will be changing. I don't know what the timing is. But that will, there will be some slight increase in cost, but it probably will still fall under the $60,000 that I anticipate, because we've got, there's a couple new libraries that are going to be joining CCS in the next 6 months or so too. So that will bring, I think, the CCS membership up to 35 libraries, something like that. So I don't anticipate that that will significantly change. Any questions about any of that? Okay. Moving on to the building section, so we've got a couple different lines here. Building maintenance is just kind of general building maintenance, as I said. And this is just, you know, the normal stuff that we're taking care of. You know, the lawn service, that kind of thing. Pest control, the parking, you know, that we still have to pay, St. Martha's. You know, minor upkeep and painting, that kind of thing. 70/20 is the line that any of our major building improvements come out of. And so this is usually the line that if I have to, it's my kind of wiggle room line, if you will. But I always try to keep it around $300,000 to accommodate potential projects. So next year, this was before this meeting I was at today, I was thinking my priorities for next year were security cameras. I would like to update the facilities assessment that we had done after, we had that facilities assessment done in 2022 after the completion of the lower level renovation. They say to do one every few years, so this is a good time to do it. And we've done a number of those things that the facilities assessment had identified as things we need to take care of. So we've done a number of those, so it'll be good to kind of see where we're at right now. And then first floor reconfiguration. So I have some other thoughts about all of that stuff after my meeting today, and but this is the amount that this came out to, is, you know, putting about $308,000 towards that. So it's kind of building our service improvements. And then the next building line is equipment and machinery maintenance, which we do for things like, you know, the HVAC systems, elevator maintenance, generator maintenance, that kind of thing. So that's geared more towards the actual equipment of running the building. Okay. Any questions about that? Furniture acquisition is just what it sounds like. You know, that would be for anything outside of a bigger project, like if we, for example, when we redid the lower level renovation, all of the new furniture came out of that budget line. It didn't come out of the furniture budget line, it came out of the building and service improvement line. So this would be like, if I want to get a new desk, that would come out of furniture. If we want to get one chair, that would come out of furniture, that kind of thing. But if we're doing a major, like if we decide, oh, we want to replace all the furniture on the main floor, I would say that would be more likely to come out of the 70-20 line as opposed to the insurance line,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
So I just want to make that distinction. Utilities and insurance, pretty self-explanatory. I went down slightly to reflect actual cost plus a percentage increase. Hopefully 3% is enough. One never knows with energy, and certainly the world is a really uncertain place right now. And our insurance budget line is remaining flat. We have an awesome insurance broker, and your Cook and Coker somewhere. They work really hard to get us the best prices for the best insurance, and they do a lot of libraries, and so they're really good about getting the appropriate levels of insurance. We're very well insured, but and they're also very good about warning us against potential insurance pitfalls, for example. I know I may have talked to, I don't know if at one point, like, in previous years, we had always tried to do like the end of summer reading pool party, for example. Last year, we wanted to do that. We were working with the Park District to hopefully provide that, and they were requiring some other insurance liability things from us. And in reaching out to our insurance broker, he advised us against doing that. He said because what they're seeing is that insurance companies are getting a lot stricter with all types of insurance, and so there was a potential that by signing this waiver or this liability thing that the Park District wanted us to sign in order to do this, we would be potentially jeopardizing our other building insurance. Because basically they're saying now you're liable for anything that can happen at a pool, as opposed to what can happen in a library, which is much different, right? So we took a step back from doing that, and I actually talked to the Park District Director about that, and I said, why are they able to do it in Niles? Because we heard that Niles was still doing that, and he was saying, part of it is that the Park District insurance was getting more strict with them, so they were requiring us to sign these liability waivers, and so they were passing that on to us, but he said, Morton Grove Park District is in a pool of insurance, Park District, only Park Districts for their insurance, and he said that the Niles Park District is in a pool that includes other municipalities as well as Park Districts. So the only Park District pool, or the pool that was only Park Districts, was much stricter than the other one. So it's just interesting. But because of insurance, we're not able to do some of those things, but like I said, getting back to my point about we have a great broker, and they're very, very mindful about keeping us out of trouble, any kind of insurance trouble, or limiting our liability as much as we can, given that we're a public building. So, Square credit card fees, that's what we pay to Square to use them as our credit card, accept processing through them. So that's that. The next section is supplies and some other types of things. So library supplies has gone down significantly. As I said, some of those monies have been pulled out of there to create the, what do I call it? The processing line, the collections, parentheses, physical processing shipping. So that, because some of that, the processing money came out of the processing fees came out of library supplies, so we pulled that out, and now this number will reflect just the purchase of supplies for the Access Services Department, which includes tech and circulation, but then also general office supplies that we keep in the supply closet, and that is utilized throughout the library. Passport Services Supplies is a new one, and it's the amount requested by Jeff. This is everything associated with providing the service, the photo paper, the postage. What else is included in that, Jeff? I think
That's
did I
most
say?
of it. Most of it
Yeah.
is the postage.
Yeah.
Postage and the papers and stuff for that. So that's offset very nicely by the amount of fees we're bringing in for that, so, but it is, again, it keeps it a little bit cleaner, and it's a better way for us to say, this particular service, which is new for us, and it's great, I think people love it, and I hear nothing but positive comments from people, you know, and our staff is awesome, and Jeff is to be absolutely 100% commended, he's done great, and his staff's done great. But it's made such a difference, but I wanted to be able to see and say, you know, here's what it's costing us to provide this service, here's what's bringing
Here's what's bringing
in,
in,
you know, I mean, not to say that we're doing it to make money, I mean, we're doing it primarily to provide a really necessary service, and we continue to feed tons of people, so, I mean, it continues to be really utilized, and the way that we do it, using this room, we get a lot of families, and they're so appreciative that they're
Yeah.
able to be off the floor, they're not bothering anyone else. I mean, I hear a lot of babies crying a lot, but that's okay. I'm happy to know that the room is being used and we're able to provide that service.
Yeah.
It just makes it a much more enjoyable. It's not the post office where they're glaring at you and going, you know, no, we're closed kind of thing. So
Yeah.
the windows down. So yeah, we get a lot of positive comments. So that is new, but it's to pull those numbers out so we can better track them. Telephone costs, so cost of our telephone. Postage, this is for primarily the newsletter, and then some extra monies for other marketing materials, mailing of bills, that kind of stuff. We don't do a ton of that any longer. Well, we do have regular bills, but as you see, and Joanne certainly knows, we're trying to do more and more stuff via ACH payments. So I imagine that potentially could continue to go down. I mean, the cost of, the amount of stuff that we're sending out in terms of paying bills could potentially go down. Who knows what's gonna happen with postage costs, so. I mean, those always go up, it seems. I don't even know what a postage.
It's like 78 cents.
I don't know, I don't mail any letters any longer, and I pay my bills online and stuff, so I never think about it. Printing is pretty much the amount for the newsletter, and then some other promotional types things. But that's primarily the newsletter. Business cards, name tags, that kind of thing. And again, that's the amount that is requested by Karina. Promotion and publicity, that's, you know, promotional materials. We're creating some new cardholder, new resident packets, translation services. We have to pay for someone to do that so that we're getting the right translations. Hear these horror stories all the time about something going, oh, well, I thought my welcome packet was said this in, you know, in whatever language, but it really said this thing that I didn't want it to say because they were relying on maybe less, you know, I don't want to say reputable translators, but, you know, so those costs come out of there. Meals, recreation, recognition, line 8040. This is staff recognition, branded apparel, like the t-shirts, that kind of thing. And then also when we do like a staff cookout luncheon thing in August usually, just as a thank you to staff, they made it through summer reading, and so that we buy some burgers and stuff like that comes out of there. Training costs that are associated, like our staff in service, that kind of thing. If we have a speaker come in or whatever, those come out of a different, the 80/50 continuing ed line. So this year, for line 80/50 continuing ed and meetings, I did bump it up to 15,000. ALA, the American Library Association Annual Conference, every couple of years is in Chicago because they're based in Chicago. Their headquarters is in Chicago, which is really super convenient if you're a Chicago librarian or a Chicagoland librarian. But because it's in Chicago, more staff have a tendency to go because it's close enough to drive. So this reflects it, you know, increased costs for registration, that kind of thing. And then PLA is this year. PLA is every 2 years, or PLA is in 2026. It's every 2 years. It's in Minneapolis, and I have at least one person that will be going this year or next year. So it's an absolutely worthwhile conference because it's just the Public Library Association, so it's just public libraries focused, and it really is a great conference. So I actually looked at the date and I'm like, I won't be a librarian anymore.
Yeah.
I guess I'll always be a librarian in my heart or something like that, but. I told the digital library group that I chair, we had a meeting the other day, and I told them I was retiring, and one of the other librarians, he's a librarian at Mount Prospect, and he says, and now you're going to be chair emeritus, right? Yeah. I said, yeah, I didn't know this was a lifetime appointment. No matter what I do, I still have to chair this group.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So memberships cover our memberships in our associations, our state association, our national association. It also covers the trustees, and I need to get Ileana and Kim signed up. The library does pay for your membership in the Illinois Library Association as well, so it does include those things. And then professional and consulting services, are things like our sometimes the architect, the accountant, the auditor. This would be the line that Dieters and Todd would be paid out of. And so anything associated with professional and or consulting services comes out of that line. And I did bump that up fairly significantly because I knew that you would be doing the director search, and at least half of that would probably come out of that. I assumed that you would want to hire.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit higher. Miscellaneous is truly something that we haven't been able to categorize in one of our other expense lines. We don't have a lot of things that we haven't tried to account for in something else. So, vending is what it costs. We own our vending machine, so we do our vending stock. So we have most of it in those closets, as in the one stairwell down into YS, and that's about what we spend every year for vending stock. So. Mileage is reimbursement for mileage going to meetings. A lot of meetings are still being held virtually, which is nice in some ways, but I did bump this up because, again, ALA being in Chicago, more people will be driving down to those meetings, that kind of thing. And depending on how the mileage change, because we use the IRS rate, whatever it is. So. Collection fees. This is what we would have to pay for reimbursement of lost materials, like if something came from another library and we had to reimburse that library. That's what this line comes out of. So. And then license plate sticker fees are just that. Those are the fees that we have to pay to get, to provide that service. So that includes, there's a small fee, and yeah, the way that comes out. Okay. Any questions about any of the operations? I'm trying to go fast, I'm sorry. And then special fees, FICA comes out of this. This is, as I said, FICA is 7.65% of all salaries. It doesn't matter if you work 3 hours a week or you're here 80 hours a week. We pay that percentage, so that's a little bit higher because of the increase in salaries. The audit is what we pay for our annual audit, and then the loan is, this is the loan, this is payment on the loan that we took out to do the lower level renovation. As I said in my notes, this loan should be complete in 2027, unless the board decides to pay it off sooner, but it's pretty painless the way that we have it. So I would say I prefer to just pay it monthly instead of using this huge chunk of money to pay this off. So, that's the same amount every year. So the budget line, as I say in my notes, for accounting and auditing purposes, principal and interest are separated out, but for our purposes in terms of just this budget discussion, I combine both of those things because it's the same amount every year until we paid it off, which is $154,600. And so that's it. So that takes us to my total expenditures of $4.257018 million. Assuming that the board moves forward with my recommended levy increase of 3.5%. Again, if the board wants to ask for more, they can. If you want me to ask for less, you need to tell me that, and then I have to figure out where those monies come from. I can certainly do that, but my recommendation is the 3.5% increase. So, any questions about what I said? I know I went fast and it's a lot of talking, and I don't like it to be the Pam show, but sometimes it is just the Pam show. But I think the notes are fairly detailed, and so hopefully if you have any questions.
Good job.
Thank you. But if you have any questions, if like you get home and you're looking at something and you want to ask me something, certainly let me know. As this is the first reading, you're not voting on this, so if something occurs to you over the next few weeks, please let me know so I can address it before October, because that is usually the meeting that we have to approve it, because once we approve this, I have to send it to the village, and I usually have to send it to the village by late October, early November at the latest, because then they include it in their budget presentation. So I typically don't have to present our portion of the budget to anyone at city council. We have a new city administrator, or village administrator, sorry, St. Charles is a city. So I'm always like calling something city, and I'm calling St. Charles village, whatever. We have a new village administrator, so I don't know if Chuck is gonna want me to do that. He may, but then I'll do that. But typically, I just send it off to the finance manager and the mayor and the village manager. But yeah, that's it. I'm done.
Thank you. No,
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, great job. Thank you for talking us through everything. Yeah, that first budget reading, it's usually one of our longer meetings, you know. But thank you for going through all that, all your notes, very helpful. Okay, so we're just gonna, finish it up. Communications, everyone received a copy from, Alexis Julius. It's pretty awesome that we have a state librarian as our Secretary of State. It's just, feels good that we get that all the libraries have a little bit.
He is a huge library supporter.
He is, yeah.
He is a really, which is, I mean, Jesse White was too, but not, I mean, but Alexis even.
He's a real champion,
really,
yeah. Okay, public comments, non-agenda items. Jeff, you want to say anything? No? You're good?
I've been going through some of the budget and how I come up with things and what we do and stuff, so we've been having lots of discussions about the budget and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, thanks for sitting through that with us. Okay, so again, this is one of our longer ones, so I'm going to adjourn. It is 8:51.